Get your filthy arm off my table now. I said move. You are disgusting. Brent Calloway shoved his chair back. His lip curled like he had just stepped in something rotten. His voice boomed through the entire cafe. Sir, I barely touched your cup. You spilled your dirty coffee near me, near my cup. This is exactly why people like you do not belong in places like this. Lorraine Bennett sat perfectly still, her hands folded on her lap. Her voice came out soft and steady. I am sorry. It was an accident. An accident? No. Clean yourself up and get out of my sight. She was 68 years old, a retired school teacher, a grandmother. But what nobody in that cafe knew was who her son was. Man, talking to her like that? That is just wrong. Let us get into it. Let me take you back. A small, quiet town about an hour outside Washington, D.C. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody, where shop owners wave at you through glass windows, where the same families have lived on the same streets for 3 generations. It was a Saturday morning. The air had that first real bite of autumn. Leaves were just starting to turn gold and copper along the edges of Main Street. 2 blocks down, vendors were setting up the weekly farmers market. The smell of fresh bread and apple cider drifted through the cool air. Right in the middle of town sat a little coffee shop called May's Roost. Exposed brick walls, mismatched wooden chairs, a chalkboard menu with handwritten specials. The espresso machine hissed and gurgled behind the counter like it had its own heartbeat. This was not some corporate chain. This was the kind of place where your name was already on the cup before you ordered. Lorraine Bennett walked in. She wore a cream-colored cardigan buttoned to the top. Reading glasses hung from a beaded chain around her neck. Her leather handbag was old, cracked along the strap, but she carried it like it was worth a fortune. The bell above the door jingled. May Collins, the owner, looked up and smiled instantly. Morning, Lorraine. The usual? You know it, honey. Small decaf with cream. 1 blueberry scone. Same order every Saturday. Since she retired, Lorraine held the door open for a young mother struggling with a stroller. She complimented the toddler's tiny sneakers. She dropped an extra $1 in the tip jar without looking at it. Just muscle memory from a lifetime of small kindnesses. She taught 3rd grade for 34 years at Collinsville Elementary. Half the adults in this town once sat in her classroom. She taught them to read. She taught them manners. She wiped their tears when their parents forgot to pick them up. Her husband, Harlan, had been a postal carrier. Good man, reliable hands. He died of cancer when their son, Reid, was 9 years old. Lorraine raised that boy alone, worked 2 jobs some summers, never complained, never asked for a thing. Now she was 68, retired, peaceful. Saturday mornings at May's Roost were her small luxury. She took her usual seat by the window. Sunlight warmed the left side of her face. She unfolded a napkin across her lap, set her scone on a small plate, and took her first slow sip. For a while, the world was gentle. Then, a black Escalade pulled up outside. It parked diagonally across 2 spots. The engine cut off with a heavy thud. The driver's door swung open wide, almost hitting a passing cyclist. Brent Calloway stepped out, mid-40s, tailored navy blazer, a silver watch that caught the morning light. He was already talking into his phone, loud enough that people on the sidewalk turned their heads. He did not hold the door for the woman walking out behind him. He walked straight to the counter, cutting in front of 2 people who were already waiting. May's smile disappeared. She knew Brent. Everyone in Collinsville did. He was a real estate developer who had moved to town. Since then, he had bought up half a dozen properties on the east side. Old homes, Black-owned businesses, affordable apartments. He tore them down and put up luxury condos. Longtime tenants were pushed out with 30-day notices. Small shop owners who could not afford the new rent simply vanished. Brent did not negotiate. He acquired. He treated Collinsville like a chessboard, and the people who lived there like pieces he could sweep off whenever he pleased. He ordered loudly, a complicated custom drink. He called May's prices highway robbery for a small-town dump. He tapped his credit card on the counter before she even finished making it. Then he turned around, scanning for a seat. His eyes landed on the small round table by the window. Lorraine's table. There was one empty chair across from her. Brent walked over, pulled the chair out, and sat down without a word, without asking, without even looking at her. He set his cup down hard. Some of it splashed onto the table. Lorraine glanced up. She offered a polite smile. She had no idea what was about to happen. For a moment, nothing happened. Lorraine sipped her coffee. Brent scrolled through his phone. Two strangers sharing a small table by the window, separated by less than 2 feet of worn oak. Then, Lorraine reached for her scone. Her elbow barely grazed Brent's cup. Just the faintest tap. A few drops of coffee slid down the side and pooled on the table. Brent looked down at the drops like they were poison. His head turned slowly toward Lorraine. His nostrils flared. His jaw tightened so hard the muscles in his neck popped. "Did you just touch my cup?" Lorraine blinked. "Oh, I am sorry. I did not mean to." "You put your hands near my drink." His voice was low at first, controlled, like a man choosing his words carefully, not out of kindness, but out of cruelty. "Do you have any idea how revolting that is?" "Sir, it was just an accident. I barely—" "Do not talk to me." He grabbed a napkin and wiped the side of his cup with exaggerated disgust. He held the napkin between 2 fingers like it was contaminated. Then he dropped it on Lorraine's side of the table. "There, that is yours now." Lorraine said nothing. She folded her hands in her lap and looked down at her scone. The blueberries had gone blurry through the moisture building in her eyes. The cafe had gone quiet. The espresso machine let out a long, slow hiss. A spoon clinked against a saucer somewhere behind them. May stood frozen behind the counter, a milk pitcher still in her hand. Brent was not done. "You know what I cannot stand?" He was not talking to Lorraine anymore. He was talking to the room. His voice carried across every table, every corner. "You go to a nice place. You try to enjoy your morning. And then someone like this." He gestured toward Lorraine with an open hand. "Just plants herself right next to you, touching your things, breathing on your food." Lorraine's lips pressed together. Her chin dipped slightly, but she did not move. A woman at the next table shifted uncomfortably. Her husband stared hard at his plate. No one spoke. Brent leaned closer to Lorraine, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Sharp, expensive, suffocating. "Where are you even from?" he asked. "Because this is not your kind of place. Trust me." Lorraine's voice came out so soft, it barely reached the next table. "I have lived in this town for 42 years, sir." Brent laughed. Not a real laugh. A sound designed to make her feel small. 42 years, and you still do not know how to behave in public." He picked up his coffee and took a long, deliberate sip. Then he set it down hard enough to make Lorraine flinch. That was when he noticed the crumbs. A few tiny pieces of Lorraine's scone had fallen near the center of the table, barely visible, the kind of crumbs anyone would leave. Brent stared at them, his face twisted. "Are you an animal?" he said. "Look at this mess. You are eating like a pig." Lorraine reached for her napkin to clean up. Her hand was trembling. "Do not bother." Brent stood up. His chair screeched against the tile floor. The sound cut through the cafe like a knife. "I have lost my appetite." He grabbed his cup and looked down at Lorraine. She was still sitting with her hands in her lap. Her cream cardigan, her beaded glasses chain, the cracked leather handbag hanging from the back of her chair. Everything about her was quiet. Everything about her said, "I am not a threat." Brent saw something different. "You owe me a coffee," he said. "You contaminated mine." "Sir, I did not." "Open your mouth one more time." Silence. Brent turned toward the counter. "May, make me a new one, and move this woman to another table." May set the milk pitcher down slowly. Her voice was careful, but firm. Brent, she did not do anything wrong. She has been sitting there since before you came in. I do not care when she got here. I am not sitting next to that. He did not say a slur. He did not need to. The word that hung in the air like smoke. May did not move. Brent's eyes narrowed. Fine. You want to take her side? That is your choice. He turned back to Lorraine. Get up. Lorraine looked at him. For the first time, there was something in her eyes beyond patience. It was pain. Deep, old, familiar pain. The kind that comes from hearing the same tone in 100 different voices across a lifetime. She began to stand, slowly. Her knees ached. You could see it in the way she braced one hand against the table. Faster, Brent said. She reached for her handbag. Her fingers fumbled with the strap. Her scone was still sitting on the plate, one bite taken. Brent exhaled sharply through his nose. He grabbed her cup of coffee, the small decaf with cream she ordered every Saturday, and turned it over. Coffee poured across the table. It dripped over the edge and onto Lorraine's lap. Warm brown liquid soaked into her cream cardigan. It ran down her skirt. It pooled on the tile beneath her shoes. Lorraine gasped. Her hands flew to her chest. The coffee had been warm, not scalding, but the shock hit harder than any burn. She stood there, dripping, speechless. Brent set the empty cup down on the table with a dull thud. Now you match the mess you made. The cafe was frozen. 12 people sat in that room. Not one of them stood up. Not one of them said a word. A little girl at a corner table tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, why did that man do that? The mother pulled the girl closer and whispered, Do not look, sweetheart. May came around the counter fast. She had napkins in one hand and fire in her eyes. Brent, you need to leave right now. You are not welcome here anymore. Brent smirked. Careful, May. I own the building next door. Yours could be next. He straightened his blazer. He adjusted his silver watch. Then he looked down at Lorraine one last time. She was trying to wipe the coffee from the photograph. It had slipped out of the side pocket of her handbag when she stood up too fast. A small wallet-sized photo in a thin plastic sleeve. A man in a postal uniform smiling wide. Her husband. Harlan. The coffee had soaked through the sleeve. The edges of the photo were turning brown. Lorraine's fingers moved gently across the image. Her lips were pressed tight. Her chin trembled. But she did not cry. Not in front of him. She would not give him that. Brent looked at the photo. He looked at Lorraine. And he laughed. Sentimental, he said, the way someone says, pathetic. Then he picked up his phone, stepped over the puddle of coffee on the floor, and walked toward the door. May was already dialing 911. Her voice shook as she spoke into the phone. I need someone at my shop, please. A man just assaulted an elderly woman. He poured coffee on her. Yes, she is still here. She is shaking. Lorraine lowered herself back into her chair, coffee still dripping from her cardigan. The photo of Harlan pressed flat against her chest. A young woman, college age, curly hair pulled back, rushed over and knelt beside her. Ma'am, are you okay? Can I get you anything? Lorraine looked at her. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked down at the photograph again. The coffee stain was spreading. Harlan's smile was fading behind a brown blur, and for the first time, Lorraine's composure cracked. Just barely. A single tear slid down her cheek and landed on the back of her hand. She wiped it fast, like she was embarrassed. I just wanted my Saturday morning, she whispered. That is all I wanted. Outside, Brent leaned against his Escalade, laughing into his phone. He had no idea what he had just set in motion. The patrol car pulled up before long. Red and blue lights flickered against the cafe windows. The short burst of a siren scattered a flock of pigeons from the sidewalk. Gravel crunched under heavy boots. Deputy Owen Riley stepped out. Young, white, mid-20s, Clean uniform, stiff posture. The kind of officer who still walked like he was trying to prove something. He did not go inside first. He went straight to Brent. Brent was still leaning against his Escalade, arms crossed, phone in hand. He saw the deputy and smiled. Not a nervous smile, a welcoming one, like he had been expecting room service. "Officer, glad you are here." Brent extended his hand. Riley shook it without hesitation. "What happened, sir?" Brent tilted his head toward the café. "That woman in there caused a scene. Bumped into me, spilled coffee all over my jacket. When I asked her to be careful, she got aggressive, started yelling. The owner kicked me out for defending myself." Riley nodded slowly. He did not write anything down. He did not ask for another version. He just nodded. "She's still inside?" "By the window. Cream cardigan. You cannot miss her." Deputy Riley walked into the cafe. The bell jingled. Every head turned. Lorraine was still in her chair. May had brought her a damp towel. The young woman with curly hair was sitting beside her, holding her hand. Lorraine's cardigan was soaked dark brown from the chest down. Her glasses sat crooked on her nose. The cracked photograph of Harlan was face down on the table, drying on a napkin. Riley looked at her. He looked at the puddle of coffee still on the floor. He looked at the empty cup sitting upside down on the table. Then he said, "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification." Lorraine blinked. "I am sorry?" "Your ID, ma'am. Driver's license." May stepped forward. "Deputy, she is the victim here. That man out there threw coffee on her. I saw the whole thing. I am the one who called you." Riley held up one hand without looking at May. "Ma'am, I need to hear from both parties. That is standard procedure." Lorraine reached into her handbag with shaking fingers. She pulled out her wallet. She handed over her Virginia driver's license. Riley studied it. He tilted it under the light. He looked at Lorraine's face, then back at the card, then at her face again, like he was searching for a mismatch that did not exist. "Sit tight," he said. He walked back outside. Through the window, Lorraine watched Riley hand her license to Brent. Brent looked at it, smirked, and said something that made the deputy chuckle. May's face went red. "He just showed that man your license." She whispered, "That is not right, Lorraine. That is not right." Lorraine said nothing. She folded her hands in her lap. Her fingers were still trembling. Before long, Riley came back inside. "Ma'am, I am going to ask you to step outside so we can sort this out." "Sort what out?" Lorraine's voice was barely above a whisper. "He poured coffee on me. I am sitting here soaked. What exactly is there to sort out? Both parties have different accounts. I need to take your statements outside." "Both parties?" May's voice cracked. "I watched him dump that cup on her lap. There are 12 witnesses sitting right here." Riley turned to May. His expression was flat, professional, completely empty. "Ma'am, I understand you are upset, but I need to follow the procedure. Please, let me do my job." Lorraine stood up slowly. She picked up the photograph of Harlan. She tucked it carefully into her handbag. She straightened her soaked cardigan with both hands, and she walked outside with her chin raised. The sunlight hit her face. The autumn breeze caught the smell of damp coffee on wet wool. The farmer's market music drifted from 2 blocks away. Banjo and fiddle, cheerful and completely wrong for this moment. Brent was waiting in the parking lot, arms crossed, grinning. "There she is," he said, loud enough for the whole street to hear. Riley positioned Lorraine on one side of the lot and Brent on the other. But Brent did not stay on his side. He strolled closer, step by step, until he was near enough for Lorraine to see the flecks of gold in his watch. "You know how much this blazer cost?" Brent tugged at his sleeve. $3,000. You probably do not make that in a month on your little pension." Lorraine did not respond. "What is the matter? Nothing smart to say now?" He leaned in closer. "Good. You should have kept that mouth shut from the start. Riley stood 10 feet away, scribbling on his notepad. He heard every single word. He did not look up. Brent began circling Lorraine, slowly, like she was something on display. You know what the real problem is? People like you show up in places you have no business being. You take up space. You make everything uncomfortable. And when somebody finally says something, oh, suddenly you are the victim. Lorraine's hands tightened around her handbag strap. Her knuckles went pale. Go back to wherever you came from, sweetheart. That is my friendly advice. A couple walking their dog stopped on the sidewalk and stared. A man loading groceries into his truck froze. A teenager, sitting on a bench across the street, quietly raised her phone and pressed record. Nobody noticed her. Then, a white Mercedes pulled into the lot. The door swung open, and out stepped Colonel Calloway. Blonde highlights, oversized sunglasses, a camel-colored coat that probably cost more than Lorraine's monthly pension. She walked straight to Brent and kissed his cheek. What happened, babe? Brent tilted his head toward Lorraine. This woman attacked me in the café, ruined my blazer. Now the owner is siding with her. Kendall looked at Lorraine. She did not see the soaked cardigan. She did not see the shaking hands or the swollen eyes. She did not see 34 years of teaching or the cracked photo of a dead husband tucked inside a worn leather bag. She saw exactly what Brent wanted her to see. Officer, Kendall said, turning to Riley with a polished smile. My husband is a very important figure in this community. He is a major donor to the Sheriff's Benevolent Fund. I am sure this can be handled quickly and appropriately. Riley straightened up. Yes, ma'am. Just finishing the report now. Lorraine stood completely alone, coffee drying stiff on her clothes, autumn sun warming a face that had gone cold from the inside. Not one person, not the deputy, not the husband, not the wife, had asked if she was hurt. Riley walked over to Lorraine with his notepad open. Ma'am, I am writing up a disturbance report. Both parties may be cited for disorderly conduct. Lorraine looked at him. Her voice came out steady and quiet, broken somewhere deep that did not show on the surface. He threw coffee on me, deputy, in front of a room full of people, and you are going to cite me? I am documenting what both sides reported. There are not two sides. There is a man who poured a cup of coffee on a 68-year-old woman, and there is that woman standing right in front of you, still wet. Riley paused. His pen hovered over the paper. For half a second, something flickered behind his eyes, something that almost looked like doubt. Then Brent's voice rang out from across the lot. Officer, are we about done here? I have got a meeting. Riley clicked his pen shut. Sit tight, ma'am. I will be right back. He walked toward Brent. Lorraine stood alone against the brick wall of the café. The breeze picked up. It carried the distant sound of that banjo. Somewhere down the block, a child laughed. Lorraine reached into her handbag. She pulled out her phone. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through her contacts to one name. She pressed call. 2 rings. Hey, Mama. Her voice cracked for the very first time. Reid, honey, I need you. I am at May's. A pause. Just 1 second. But in that single second, something shifted on the other end of the line. The warmth in her son's voice disappeared. It was replaced by something harder, something forged in 2 decades of service, discipline, and controlled fury. Do not move, Mama. I am on my way. She hung up. She slipped the phone back into her bag. She wiped her eyes once with the back of her hand. Then she straightened her stained cardigan, lifted her chin, and waited. Brent glanced over from across the lot. He saw the old woman by the wall, still wet, still quiet, still clutching that cracked leather handbag, like it was the only thing in this world keeping her upright. He smirked and looked away. He had absolutely no idea what he had just set in motion. Yo, I gotta pause real quick, because this is not sitting right with me at all. A grown man doing this to somebody's grandma? And the cop just standing there vibing? I am heated. like genuinely heated. Y'all better keep watching because something is coming. Some time passed. Lorraine did not move from that wall. She stood with her back straight and her eyes forward. The coffee had dried into stiff brown streaks down her cardigan. Her fingers were still wrapped around the strap of her handbag. Brent was leaning on his Escalade, scrolling his phone, laughing at something on the screen. Kendall stood beside him, reapplying her lipstick in the side mirror. Deputy Riley was leaning against his patrol car, filling out paperwork, like this was just another Saturday call. Nobody was watching the road. Then came the sound, a low rumble, deep, steady, the kind of engine note that does not come from a civilian vehicle. A black Chevrolet Suburban, with tinted windows and federal government plates, turned the corner onto Main Street. It rolled slowly past the farmer's market, past the brick front shops, past the little café with the chalkboard menu. It pulled into the parking lot and stopped. The engine cut off. For a moment, nothing happened. The door did not open. No one stepped out. The lot went quiet. Even the banjo music from the market seemed to fade. Brent glanced up from his phone. Kendall lowered her lipstick. Deputy Riley stopped writing. Then the driver's door opened. A boot hit the pavement, black leather polished to a mirror shine. Then the second boot. Then he stood. Colonel Reid Vaughn rose to his full height, 6'3", in full United States Army dress uniform. Dark green jacket, pressed razor sharp. Rows of ribbons lined across his chest. Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation with oak leaf clusters. Silver Eagle insignia gleamed on each shoulder. His cover sat perfectly straight on his head. His jaw was set like concrete. He closed the door behind him with a slow, deliberate click. The parking lot went dead silent. A woman on the sidewalk stopped mid-step. The man loading groceries set down his bag. The teenager with her phone still recording nearly dropped it. Colonel Reid Vaughn did not scan the lot. He did not look at Brent. He did not look at the deputy or the Mercedes or the Escalade parked sideways across two spots. He looked only at his mother. He walked toward her, each step measured, each step controlled. His shoes made no sound on the gravel. The ribbons on his chest caught the morning sun and threw tiny flashes of color across the brick wall behind Lorraine. Lorraine saw him, and her whole body softened. Her shoulders dropped. Her grip on the handbag loosened. Her chin trembled once, just once, and then held. "Reid," she whispered. He reached her. He looked at the coffee stains down her chest. He looked at the smudged glasses sitting crooked on her nose. He looked at the dried tear tracks on her cheeks. He gently lifted her hand and turned it over. Her fingers were still shaking. His jaw tightened so hard, a vein surfaced along his temple. He put both arms around her. She pressed her face into the chest of his uniform. Her small frame nearly disappeared inside his. He held her for a moment. No words, just breath. Then, he let go. He straightened up, and he turned around. Brent's smirk was gone, completely gone. His phone was frozen halfway to his pocket. His mouth hung slightly open. His eyes moved from the ribbons to the insignia to the government plates on the Suburban. And the color drained from his face like water from a cracked glass. Kendall took a half step backward. Her sunglasses slid down her nose. She did not push them back up. Deputy Riley dropped his pen. Colonel Reid Vaughn walked to the center of the parking lot. He stopped exactly between his mother and Brent. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "I am Colonel Reid Vaughn, Judge Advocate General's Corps, United States Army." He paused. Let it land. "Who threw coffee on my mother?" Brent's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Look, it was a misunderstanding, man. She bumped into me, and I did not ask for your version." Colonel Reid Vaughn's voice was level, calm, the kind of calm that makes your stomach drop. "I asked who did it." He turned to the cafe door. May was standing there, arms crossed, eyes red. May, tell me what happened. May told him everything. Every word Brent said, every drop of coffee, the napkin thrown at Lorraine's face, the handbag dumped on the floor, the photograph of Harlan soaking in a brown puddle. Colonel Reid Vaughn listened without moving, without blinking. Then he turned back to Brent. What you did today constitutes assault and battery under Virginia Code 18.2-57. His voice carried across the entire lot. Given the racial language multiple witnesses have reported, you people go back where you came from, sticky fingers. This may qualify for hate crime enhancement under 18.2-57 subsection C. Brent's face went white, paper white. I never said that is not what I also serve on the board of the Virginia Civil Rights Legal Defense Fund. Colonel Reid Vaughn took one step closer. So, I would choose my next words very carefully if I were you. Brent said nothing. For the first time all morning, Brent Calloway had absolutely nothing to say. Behind Colonel Reid Vaughn, the teenager across the street was still recording. Her phone caught everything. The uniform, the insignia, the moment Brent's arrogance collapsed in on itself like a building with no foundation. Kendall was already backing toward her Mercedes. Colonel Reid Vaughn pulled out his phone. He dialed a number from memory. Not 911. A direct line. This is Colonel Vaughn. I need the watch commander at the Collinsville County Sheriff's Office. Yes, I will hold on. Brent took a step backward. His heel caught the curb, and he stumbled. He did not fall, but the stumble was enough. Everyone in that parking lot saw it. The man who had towered over Lorraine moments ago was now shrinking. Yes, sir. I am at May's Roost on Main Street. There has been an assault on an elderly woman. I have multiple witnesses and video evidence. I would like a senior officer dispatched immediately. Your deputy on scene may need supervisory support. Deputy Riley's face went gray. He looked down at his notepad. The words he had written suddenly seemed very small. Before long, a second patrol car pulled in. The door opened, and out stepped Sergeant Vance Lawson, tall, broad-shouldered, silver at the temples, a man who had clearly been doing this job for a very long time. He walked straight to Colonel Reid Vaughn. They shook hands, firm, familiar. Colonel Vaughn, been a while. Sergeant Lawson, wish it were better circumstances. They knew each other from veterans' events, community fundraisers, the kind of mutual respect that does not need explanation. Colonel Reid Vaughn walked Sergeant Lawson through the situation, calmly, precisely, like a man delivering a briefing. May confirmed every detail. The young woman with curly hair added what she had seen. 2 other cafe patrons who had followed the crowd outside offered their accounts. Then, the teenager with the phone stepped forward. I got it all on video, she said. From the moment he started yelling at her in the parking lot. Everything. Lawson took the phone. He watched 30 seconds of footage. His expression did not change, but his grip on the phone tightened. He handed it back. Thank you, miss. I will need a copy of that. Then Lawson turned to Brent. Brent was standing by his Escalade. Arms no longer crossed, hands at his sides. His blazer was unbuttoned. His silver watch caught the light. But it did not look impressive anymore. It looked like costume jewelry on a man playing dress-up. Mr. Calloway, Brent straightened. Sergeant, listen, this has been completely blown out of proportion. I would like to— Sir, you are under arrest for assault and battery. The words landed like a hammer on glass. You cannot be serious. Brent's voice pitched upward. Do you know who I am? I am a major developer in this town. I donate to the sheriffs. I know exactly who you are, Mr. Calloway. Lawson's voice was flat and final. Turn around, please. This is insane. I want my lawyer. I want. You will have access to your attorney at the station. Turn around. Brent looked at Colonel Reid Vaughn, then at Riley, then at the crowd that had gathered on the sidewalk. 15, maybe 20 people now. Some holding phones, all watching. He turned around. Lawson pulled Brent's wrists behind his back. The handcuffs clicked shut. Two sharp metallic snaps that echoed across the quiet lot. Brent flinched at the sound, like it burned him. Kendall rushed forward. "Officer, please. There has to be some mistake. My husband would never—" Lawson did not look at her. "Ma'am, you are welcome to meet your husband at the station." Kendall's mouth opened, then closed. Her chin crumpled. She turned and walked quickly to her Mercedes, not because she felt sorry for Lorraine, because people were watching. Lawson guided Brent into the back of the patrol car. Brent ducked his head, not by choice. The door shut with a heavy thud. Through the window, his face was tight, jaw clenched, eyes darting. He looked small behind that glass. Lawson turned to Deputy Riley. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Owen, a word." They stepped aside. Lawson spoke quietly. Riley's face drained of what little color it had left. "We are going to review your body camera footage. And then we are going to have a very long conversation about how you handled this today." Riley said nothing. He stared at the ground. Back by the cafe wall, Lorraine sat on the wooden bench. Colonel Reid Vaughn was beside her, his arm around her shoulders. May had brought out a fresh cup of decaf and a new blueberry scone. The young woman with curly hair was still there, standing quietly nearby, like a gentle guard. Lorraine held the warm cup with both hands. Steam drifted up past her face. She looked at the patrol car where Brent sat behind the glass. She did not smile. She did not gloat. She looked down at her cup and whispered to no one in particular, "I just wanted my Saturday morning, baby. That is all." Colonel Reid Vaughn pulled her a little closer. He kissed the top of her head. "I know, Mama. I know." The video hit the internet that evening. The teenager, her name was Jenna, posted a 2-minute clip on social media. She did not add music. She did not add filters. She did not need to. The raw footage spoke for itself. Brent Calloway's voice, loud and clear, telling a 68-year-old woman to go back where she came from. His finger pointing in her face. His wife smiling beside him. A deputy doing nothing. And then the Suburban pulling in. The boots, the uniform, the ribbons. Before long, the video had 400,000 views. Soon, it passed 2 million. The hashtag started small. A handful of local accounts sharing the clip with a single line. Hashtag, Justice for Lorraine. Before long, it was trending in Virginia. Before long, it was national. Rachel Thornton, a reporter from the regional NBC affiliate, was the first journalist on the ground. She showed up at May's roost with a camera crew. May gave her full account on camera, steady voice, wet eyes. "That woman has been coming here every Saturday since she retired," May said. "She has never raised her voice. She has never caused a single problem. And that man treated her like she was garbage on his shoe." 3 other witnesses agreed to go on camera. Their stories matched. Every detail. The coffee, the napkin, the photograph of Harlan on the wet floor. Then, Rachel sat down with Lorraine. Lorraine wore a navy blue dress. Her hair was neatly pinned. She had new reading glasses. Colonel Reid Vaughn had driven her to pick them out the day before. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, the same way she had sat in that cafe. She did not cry on camera. She did not raise her voice. She simply told the truth. "I walked in that morning expecting nothing more than a cup of coffee and a blueberry scone. I walked out soaking wet with a cracked photograph of my late husband, wondering what I did wrong." She paused. "The answer is nothing. I did not do anything wrong." The interview aired. It was picked up by 3 national networks shortly after. And then the digging began. Investigative journalists pulled Brent Calloway's business records. What they found turned a local incident into a national scandal. Over the past couple of years, Brent had purchased 7 properties in historically black neighborhoods on the east side of Collinsville. Each time, the pattern was identical. He would buy the building, double the rent overnight, and issue 30-day eviction notices when tenants could not pay. Families that had lived in those homes for decades were pushed out in weeks. Former tenants came forward. One elderly man said Brent had told him to find somewhere more appropriate for someone like you. A single mother described being threatened with legal action when she asked for an extension. A barbershop owner who had operated on the same corner for 22 years said Brent called his business an eyesore, dragging down property values. None of them had spoken publicly before. Lorraine's story gave them courage. The county prosecutor's office moved fast. Brent Calloway was formally charged with assault and battery under Virginia Code 18.2-57 with a hate crime enhancement under subsection C. Separately, Colonel Reid Vaughn filed a civil lawsuit on Lorraine's behalf through the Virginia Civil Rights Legal Defense Fund, citing physical assault, emotional distress, racial harassment, and elder abuse. Brent's attorney, a high-priced defense lawyer from Richmond, attempted to negotiate a plea deal. Misdemeanor assault, no jail time, community service, a fine. The judge reviewed the video. He reviewed the witness statements. He reviewed the pattern of behavior from the former tenants. He reviewed the body camera footage from Deputy Riley, which showed Riley laughing with Brent while Lorraine sat inside, soaked and shaking. The plea deal was rejected. The trial lasted several days. The prosecution played Jenna's video in full. They played May's 911 call. They brought 4 witnesses to the stand. They showed photographs of Lorraine's stained cardigan, her cracked reading glasses, and the coffee-damaged photograph of Harlan. The defense argued it was a momentary loss of temper, an isolated incident, a man under business pressure who reacted poorly. The prosecution responded with testimony from 6 former tenants, 6 separate accounts of racial intimidation, a pattern stretching back years. Brent took the stand in his own defense. It lasted briefly. Under cross-examination, he contradicted himself 3 times. He claimed he never touched Lorraine's coffee cup. The video showed otherwise. He claimed he never used racially charged language. 4 witnesses said otherwise. He claimed Lorraine had been aggressive toward him first. May's 911 call, made in real time, said otherwise. The jury deliberated quickly. Guilty. Assault and battery, with hate crime enhancement. The sentencing came shortly after. The courtroom was packed. Local press lined the back wall. Rachel Thornton sat in the second row with her notebook open. The judge spoke directly to Brent before reading the sentence. Mr. Calloway, this court has reviewed not only the events, but a broader pattern of conduct that reflects a deep contempt for the dignity of others. You targeted a woman who posed no threat. You humiliated her in public. And when law enforcement arrived, you attempted to weaponize their authority against her. Brent stood with his hands clasped in front of him. His attorney stood beside him. Neither moved. This court sentences you to 18 months in the county detention facility, 5 years of supervised probation upon release, 500 hours of community service to be completed in the communities you displaced, mandatory completion of a racial sensitivity and bias intervention program, and restitution to Mrs. Lorraine Bennett in the amount determined by the civil proceeding. Brent's knees buckled slightly. His attorney caught his arm. In the gallery, Lorraine sat beside Colonel Reid Vaughn. She wore the same navy dress from her interview. Her hands were folded in her lap. Colonel Reid Vaughn's arm rested behind her on the bench. She showed no satisfaction, no triumph, just quiet, steady resolve. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked Lorraine how she felt. Lorraine paused. She looked at the microphone, then past it, then at the sky. I feel like my husband would be proud of our son, she said. And I feel like maybe this town remembers now that everybody sitting in that cafe deserved to be there, including me. The fallout continued for weeks. Deputy Owen Riley was placed on administrative leave pending a full internal affairs review. His body camera footage became a training case study. He eventually completed a mandatory retraining program. In a later interview, he admitted publicly that implicit bias had guided his response that morning. The county sheriff's office implemented new protocols for responding to reports involving people of color. An independent oversight committee was formed. 3 of the former tenants Brent had displaced filed their own civil suits. Brooke Langford filed for legal separation shortly after the verdict. Her attorney cited irreconcilable differences. The court of public opinion had a shorter phrase for it. Sometime after the verdict, Colonel Reid Vaughn was invited to speak at the annual Collinsville Veterans Dinner. 200 people filled the community hall. Folding chairs, paper tablecloths, the smell of roast beef and cheap coffee drifting from the kitchen. American flags lined the walls. A brass band played softly in the corner. When Colonel Reid Vaughn stepped to the podium, the room went quiet. He did not talk about his career. He did not mention his rank, or his medals, or the years he had spent serving overseas. He did not talk about the trial. He talked about his mother. "When I was 9 years old, my father died," he said. "Cancer. He was a postal carrier. Worked 6 days a week for 23 years. Never missed a rote." He paused. The room did not breathe. "After he passed, my mother did not stop. She got up the next morning and went to school. She taught 30 kids how to read that year. She came home, made dinner, checked my homework, and ironed my clothes for the next day. She did that every single day for the next 25 years. His voice stayed steady. His hands rested on the sides of the podium. "She never told me the world owed me anything. She never told me it would be fair. She told me to stand up straight, speak clearly, and treat every person I meet with the same respect I want for myself." He looked down for a moment. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. The hardest part of that day at the cafe was not confronting the man who hurt her. It was not the arrest. It was not the trial. He swallowed. It was seeing my mother on her knees, on a wet tile floor, picking up a cracked photograph of my father, while a room full of people watched and said nothing. The room was silent. A woman in the 3rd row wiped her eyes with a napkin. A retired Marine at the back table pressed his lips together and nodded once. Colonel Reid Vaughn stepped away from the podium. He did not wait for applause. He walked straight to the table where Lorraine sat, pulled out the chair beside her, and took her hand. The room rose to its feet. Life in Collinsville slowly returned to its rhythm. The farmers' market still ran every Saturday morning. The banjo player is still set up on the corner. May still opened the cafe at 7 sharp. And Lorraine still walked in. Same cream cardigan. New one. A gift from Colonel Reid Vaughn. Same beaded glasses chain. Same small decaf with cream. Same blueberry scone. But things were different now. People greeted her by name, not just the regulars, everyone. The new couple who moved in down the street. The teenager who used to sit on the bench across the road. The mail carrier who had taken over Harlan's old route 20 years ago. Children waved at her through the window. May hung a small framed photograph near the register. Lorraine and Colonel Reid Vaughn side by side, taken the Saturday after the incident. Lorraine was smiling. Colonel Reid Vaughn had his arm around her. Behind them, the chalkboard menu still listed the same specials. Underneath the frame, May had written in her careful handwriting, "Everybody belongs here." Lorraine used every dollar from the restitution to create the Bennett Family Scholarship, a fund for first-generation college students in Collinsville. The first 2 recipients were announced later that year. One was the daughter of a barber whose shop Brent had shut down. The other was Jenna, the teenager who had pressed record. Lorraine handed them each a letter at the ceremony. Inside, she had written the same line to both of them. Your voice matters. Do not ever let anyone make you feel like it does not. Okay, but yes, this story is made up. But bro, the feeling of someone treating you like you are invisible, that is way too real. And low-key, what messes me up the most is not dudes like Brent. It is everyone else in that cafe just sitting there doing nothing. Come on. So let me ask you this. If you were sitting in that cafe that Saturday morning and you saw a man pour coffee on a 68-year-old woman, what would you have done? Would you have stood up? Would you have said something? Or would you have looked away and hoped someone else would handle it? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to hear it. Every single one. And if this story made you feel something, if it made your chest tight, or your jaw clench, or your eyes sting, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Because we are not done telling these stories, not even close. Stand up for someone today, even if your voice shakes, especially then.